Martha let her son and his wife into her home. She wanted to help the young family but ended up trapped. Will Martha be able to protect herself in her home? If you want to hear more exciting stories about the difficulties and victories of women over 60, subscribe to our channel and click on the bell under the video. Enjoy watching. Part 1. Unexpected Guests. Martha always believed that the walls of her house held not just things, but the very soul of her family. Her son Michael grew up in this bright, cozy house overlooking an old park. It was here that she and her husband celebrated their silver wedding anniversary, and here that she saw him off on his final journey. Now silence was her constant companion, and she had learned to find comfort in it, leafing through old photo albums and making tea for one. This house was the last thing she had left from her former life, a living archive of her happiness. Everything changed when her son Michael and his wife Sarah appeared on Martha's doorstep. They arrived with boxes and suitcases. What Martha had always feared had happened. 6 months earlier, the enterprising and ambitious Sarah had embarked on a new business venture. This time it was related to eco-cosmetics. The idea failed, depriving the young family of their modest savings and even their rented apartment. They lost everything. And Martha, opening the door, opened her heart. Of course, stay. This is your home. Martha tried her best to make her son and daughter-in-law feel comfortable in her home. She baked delicious almond cookies, put fresh sheets on their bed, and tried not to make any noise in the mornings. Martha tried to be the perfect mother-in-law, unobtrusive, helpful, loving. But very soon her wings were clipped. Sarah did not perceive her hospitality as a gesture of goodwill, but as a given. And she began to settle in, not as a guest, but as a full-fledged hostess. Sarah declared, "Martha, these curtains just smell like mothballs in the last century," and replaced the velvet drapes with something minimalist and beige. Martha's favorite vase, a gift from her husband, was moved to the closet. It's too pretentious and collects dust. Photo albums were sent to the attic as if they were useless junk. In the mornings, the kitchen became Sarah's headquarters. She talked loudly on the phone, making new plans, and irritably pushed aside Martha's jars of jam, clearing space for her blender and packets of spirulina. Martha pressed her lips together and silently removed her vase from the shelf, wrapping the old curtains in cloth as if burying a part of herself. She caught Michael's gaze. Tired and guilty, he just shrugged helplessly, whispering, "Mom, she's just really upset about the failure. Give her time." He tried to be an invisible arbiter, but his silent indulgence of his wife spoke louder than any words. The house, once her safe haven, was filled with tension, slamming doors, and quiet but cutting remarks. Martha endured, tried to adapt to become quieter, smaller, more transparent. But with each passing day, she felt her love and hospitality being wasted, giving way to bitter resentment and the aching feeling that she had become a guest in her own home, uninvited and intrusive. Part 2. The Glass Wall. The evening house was plunged into a false silence, where every sound echoed hollowly and treacherously. Martha carried a cup of tea upstairs for Sarah, another attempt at truce on the battlefield for her own home. Approaching her son's half-open bedroom door, she froze when she heard her own name. Sarah's voice, usually sharp and commanding, now sounded sweet and poisonous, like syrup with a hint of poison. "She's not eternal, Michael. Sooner or later, this question will arise anyway. I'm just suggesting we decide now, while we still have the strength and energy for a new start. This house is our only asset. Our chance." Martha froze at the door, the hot cup burning her palm. "But Mom," She's still full of strength, Michael muttered uncertainly. Just evict her? Where to? It's her home. It was her home, Sarah corrected him, her voice ringing with steel. Now it's our roof over our heads. And our only capital. There are wonderful facilities paid with care. She'll be happy there with people her own age. And we can start all over again. I already have an idea for a new project. A brilliant idea. But we need investment. We need to sell this old crypt. Martha didn't hear another word. The words facility, sell, and crypt hit her like a hammer to the temple. She couldn't breathe. She put the cup on the bedside table and, without remembering how, made her way to her room. Her heart was pounding in her throat, constricting her with an icy lump. Her home, her fortress, her last refuge had been turned into a bargaining chip for yet another adventure. In the morning, she went into the kitchen, feeling drained and broken, as if she had been through a long illness. Sarah, already cheerful and businesslike, was pacing around the living room with the phone to her ear, paying no attention to her mother-in-law. "Yes, Peter, I understand," she said confidently, stirring her cappuccino with a spoon. "But we need to find a loophole." "No, she's not the owner." "Are you sure?" "Excellent. So Michael's share." "Yes, I see. We need to look at the documents. If we can prove that the house is de facto joint property, or contest, perfect. It's a deal. I'll wait for your call." She threw the phone on the sofa and, meeting Martha's gaze, didn't even flinch. Only a slight contemptuous smile flashed across her face before she turned away toward the window. Martha stood in the middle of the kitchen, in the very center of her home, and felt completely helpless. Legal terms rained down on her like stones. Loophole. Papers. Michael's share. She was just a dusty nuisance, a living obstacle to someone else's profit. Fear paralyzed her. She didn't know the law, didn't know how to protect what was most precious to her in the world. The world that had been her support was crumbling, and she was left alone on its ruins, powerless to oppose cold calculation and cruelty. She was at an impasse, a deaf, hopeless one from which there seemed to be no way out. Part 3. A game without rules. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house thickened to the point of a storm ready to break out at any second. Martha, still reeling from the blow, tried to find solace in the kitchen with a cup of tea. On one such day, her peace was shattered by Sarah's clear, businesslike voice. "Yes, of course, come on over. We're home right now, I'll show you everything," she almost sang into the phone. "Yes, the house is old, but the location is great, the potential is just huge. For demolition or major renovation." Martha froze. She peeked out of the kitchen and saw Sarah, unable to hide her excitement, rearranging a vase on the dresser, already imagining what furniture she would put in its place. Half an hour later, the doorbell rang. Standing on the doorstep was a fit young man in a sharp suit, tablet in hand, a real estate agent. "Come in, come in," Sarah exclaimed with unnatural joy. "Michael, come here." "Mr. Brown, this is my husband, Michael, the owner," she said, casting a meaningful glance toward the kitchen, where Martha was watching. And then the nightmare began. They walked through the rooms and Sarah and the realtor unceremoniously discussed the merits and shortcomings of her home, her life. "You could tear down this partition and make it an open space. The bathroom is outdated, of course, but that can be fixed. And this wallpaper needs to be torn down immediately, of course." Michael followed them silently like a ghost, not daring to look up at his mother, who stood motionless in the doorway. He hunched over, his shoulders tensed to the limit. He tried to say something, but Sarah immediately cut him off with a glance. Then Sarah launched her main attack. Sitting down in the living room directly opposite Martha, she took out her phone. "Look, Mike, I Googled it this morning," she said in a sweet voice that did not bode well. "There are some wonderful options for retirement homes. Sunset Gardens. Look at their rooms, almost like a hotel. And round-the-clock care. Your mom will be living the high life." She turned the phone screen toward Michael, and then, as if by accident, toward Martha. The bright photos showed smiling elderly people in sterile, soulless rooms. Martha felt the floor slip away from under her feet. They weren't just planning anymore, they were already choosing a prison for her. Right before her eyes. "Sarah, maybe not now," Michael muttered quietly, almost inaudibly. "When then?" she retorted, abruptly lowering the phone. "We have to think about the future, Mike. Our future. Your mother, I'm sure, is an adult and will understand. She'll be better off with professionals." At that moment, Martha met her son's gaze. In his eyes, she saw not just weakness. She saw silent agreement. Betrayal, cloaked in the mask of agonizing shame. He wasn't going to save her. It was the height of humiliation. They were bargaining over the walls that remembered his first cry, planning her future as if they were deciding where to donate unwanted old furniture. Without saying a word, Martha turned and walked away silently. She needed to run. To hide. The only place this woman couldn't reach her was the attic. Choking back the tears she didn't allow herself to shed in front of them, she climbed the stairs into the past, into the only place where her life still remained. Part 4. A voice from the past. Martha climbed up to the attic. It was the last place that Sarah, the new owner, had not yet reached. The air here was thick and sweet, smelling of dust, old wood, and time. Myriads of dust particles danced in the beam of light from the dormer window. In the corner lay piles of things that Sarah had hastily swept away. Old albums, boxes of Michael's toys, Martha's dresses from bygone eras. With trembling hands, Martha opened the first album, and time turned back. Here she was, young, on the steps of this house with her fiancé. Here he was, her husband, carrying a laughing Michael on his shoulders. Here they all were together, decorating their first Christmas tree. Each photograph was a painful blow, a reminder that there had been real great happiness here. And now they were trying to put a dollar value on that happiness and sell it. Tears blurred her eyes. Martha put the album aside and reached for a cardboard box with the corner of an old folder labeled Documents peeking out. Her heart pounded wildly. Sarah had spoken so confidently with the lawyer. Maybe she was right? Maybe she really had no rights? With trembling fingers, she untied the strings of the yellowed folder. Insurance policies, old receipts, warranties for long-broken appliances. And then her gaze fell on a thick paper envelope. On it, in recognizable, firm handwriting, was written, "To my beloved Martha." A lined sheet of paper fell out, written in the same handwriting, along with several official documents. "My dear Martha," the letter read, "if you are reading this, it means that I am no longer with you. And that means the time has come when you may need help. I always tried to take care of you while I was alive, and I want to continue doing so even after I'm gone. This house is our fortress, your place of strength. I have arranged everything so that it will remain yours forever. No one will ever be able to take it away from you. I love you forever. Your John." Martha pressed the letter to her chest, and sobs burst forth. It was his voice, his calm and firm confidence. He was here with her in these lines. She looked at the official papers, the certificate of ownership, and in the owner column in black and white, there was only one name, Martha Everett. Her whole world turned upside down in an instant. There was no fear, no confusion. There was only universal, deafening gratitude and a strange, calm feeling of strength. Sarah was plotting, Michael was silent, the lawyers were studying something, and she, it turned out, had been the sole and rightful owner all along. Her husband, her beloved John, reached out to her from the past and handed her the most powerful weapon, legal rights and confidence. She came down from the attic a different woman, not a broken victim, but the mistress of her own destiny. All that remained was to choose the right moment to announce this new order of things. Part 5. Queen of her castle. Sarah was on top of the world. Her plan was working perfectly. In the living room of her house, no, the house that was almost hers, 3 potential buyers had gathered. Successful, emphatically polite, and eager to hear the beautiful story of an inheritance to be exchanged for a dream startup. "Oh, are these original moldings?" one of the women exclaimed, looking around the living room. "Yes, but they need serious restoration," Sarah replied with feigned sadness. "We would like to preserve them, but unfortunately, it would require too much investment. The new owners will have to make a difficult decision." Michael, pale and tense, poured wine, trying not to meet anyone's gaze. He looked like a puppet about to be torn apart by invisible strings. In the middle of dinner, when the air was filled not just with conversation but with specific figures, a shadow appeared on the stairs. Everyone turned around. Martha was standing on the steps. But this was not the hunched, inconspicuous woman everyone was used to seeing. She was wearing an elegant evening gown, in which she once received guests with her late husband. Her silver hair was styled in a strict hairstyle, and her eyes burned with a cold, steely fire. She looked like a true hostess who had stepped out of a portrait from the past. An awkward silence hung in the living room. "Martha, dear," Sarah began venomously, quickly rising to take the initiative. "You're not feeling well. Go rest in your room. We don't want to disturb you." She took a step toward her mother-in-law, trying to take her by the elbow and lead her away, but Martha pulled away with such dignity that Sarah froze. "Thank you for your concern, Sarah, but I feel perfectly fine." Her voice was quiet but absolutely clear and distinct, cutting through the silence like a blade. "And I came downstairs because I have something for dessert for our guests." She slowly approached the large dining table, which looked at her with curiosity and confusion. "I hope you haven't had your fill of scandals yet," she asked politely, and a restrained chuckle rippled across the table. Without another word, Martha opened the large folder she was holding and began laying out copies of documents in front of the astonished guests and Sarah, who had turned pale as a sheet. "This is the title deed to this house," she said, tapping her finger clearly on the name. "Martha Everett, sole owner. This is an extract from the register. And this is a letter from my late husband, who made sure that our nest would always be safe." She glanced around the room, pausing on Sarah, whose jaw had dropped, and Michael, who looked at his mother in silent shock, seeing her for the first time not as a victim but as a quiet, unyielding force. "I'm very sorry you've been misled," Martha said to her guests, her voice sounding genuinely, icily polite. "There will be no sale. Ever. And now," her voice rang with steel, "I will have to ask you all to leave my house before I call the police to remove the uninvited guests. That goes for everyone." "It's a lie. It's fake," Sarah screamed, losing her composure. "Michael, say something," She's crazy. But Michael didn't say a word. He looked from his mother to his hysterical wife. Shame, relief, and pain fought within him. Slowly, heavily, he got up and took Sarah by the elbow, no longer as an obedient husband but as a guard. "Let's go, Sarah." His voice was dull and final. "That's it. Let's go." He led his wife, numb with rage, away, nodding apologetically to the stunned guests, who hurriedly grabbed their things, trying not to look Martha in the eye. The door closed. Silence reigned in the house. The same silence filled with memories and peace. Martha slowly ran her hand along the wall of her house. Her house. She had defended it. And a new quiet chapter of her life began. A life on her terms. Epilogue. New chapters. The next 3 years in Martha's house were not empty. They were filled with a new conscious meaning. In some ways, Sarah was right. The house did need renovating. But not in the way Sarah wanted to impose, cold, soulless, for profit. Martha renovated the house for herself. She breathed new life into it, preserving its soul. The wallpaper was replaced with fresh paint and warm shades. Modern appliances appeared in the kitchen, but her favorite tablecloth and vase returned to their places. The house took on a new sound. The quiet voices of friends over tea, lively debates at charity dinners in support of the local library, the thoughtful silence of the book club, which met once a month to discuss the latest novel. Martha was not alone. She was the center of her own little world, which she herself had created. There was no word from her son and daughter-in-law. Sometimes at night, Martha would look at the moon and wonder where Michael was and if he was happy. The pain subsided, turning into a light, familiar sadness, like the autumn fog outside the window. One spring morning, as Martha was watering the flowers on the porch, a battered car slowly drove up the road. Michael got out. He was different, older, hunched over under the weight of an invisible burden. And in his arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, lay a tiny girl. He hesitated to approach, standing at the gate. Martha, her heart tight with 1,000 conflicting emotions, took a step toward him. "Mom," his voice broke, hoarse and unfamiliar. I don't know where to start." He told her everything without looking up. The birth of his daughter. The mad joy that turned to horror. Sarah, who from the first day could not accept motherhood, screaming that the child was destroying her life, her plans. And then her escape. One day he came home and found only a note. "I can't. I'm sorry. I was left alone with her." He looked at his daughter's sleeping face with such pain and love that Martha felt a lump in her throat. "I didn't know where to go. I didn't dare ask you for help. After everything. But she's not to blame for anything." He fell silent, and in the silence she could hear the birds chirping in her garden, which she loved so much. "Mom, I'm sorry. I was blind and weak. I betrayed you. I'm not asking you to forget it. I'm asking for a chance. At least for her." Martha looked at her son, broken and finally grown up. She looked at the little girl, her continuation, a new chapter in the history of this house. This girl was not an occupier. She was an heir. She was hope. Martha slowly opened the gate. "Come in," she said quietly. "The house is big. In the guest bedroom there is an old cradle that I once rocked you in. It's time for it to serve again." She did not hug her son right away. Forgiveness had been granted, but trust had to be earned. But the door was open, not for past grievances but for the future. Michael crossed the threshold, crying. The little girl smiled in her sleep. The house, which had weathered so many storms, welcomed new residents. Not invaders, but lost travelers who had returned to their haven. And Martha knew that now there would be no silence in this house. Instead, there would be children's laughter, and that meant life.